Hey everyone, today we're going to go over to Korea. We're going to look at some strong picks from this new patch, 9.17, and we're going to give you a few ideas of some new stuff to try out and some stuff you might want to play. We're just going to jump straight into this one, and we're going to start with maybe one of the strongest picks in the entire game that sort of came out of nowhere in Korea, which is Mundo. This is picking up over time, so it's being banned and it's being played a bit more every single day. But it is jungle as well. By the way, it's actually not top lane. So it starts off pretty weak. You're not going to be doing too much early game, maybe a couple of ganks if you're lucky, but you might get invaded since you're going to have relatively low health. You're a tank and you do have to pay health for your abilities. I know that sounds pretty bad, but then you become unkillable. Once you have your items and your ultimate and everything together, like you just don't die. You have your red smite, you have your Q and your E damage as well. It's going to be way too much for him to run through anybody at first. Like it really comes down to, can you kill Mundo before he kills you? And sadly, the answer most of the time is no. Just to point out as well, we are maxing at E here, not at Q. So you get a minimum of 100 AD for the next auto attack, a maximum of 200, which is why you smash someone so hard. The runes are actually pretty smart. It's a big reason why this works though. So you have your fleet for healing. You got your tenacity, which when paired with merc treads means you basically never get crowd controlled. Especially now after a recent buff where your W is active, you gain 30% tenacity on top of that. So that was changed from 10 to 30 scaling. It's now just 30 to start the game. So last stand is also more damage at lower health. Then approach velocity in inspiration as your secondary tree, so you can chase people down when you slow with cleaver. Your farm speed is actually not that bad at all. As I said, you can get evaded early and it kind of sucks, but that is the major downside to this pick. He's just not that strong until you have like your Cinderhulk and your red smite. It might seem a bit weird, but Mundo jungle was never that bad, and he has had quite a lot of buffs in a row actually. Like your Q does more damage, your E does more, the cooldown also scales down, even more magic resist on it as well, and there's actually even more before that if we go back to earlier in the season. It's just very easy to play, but there are two sides to this. So first up is a huge meat shield, right? Nobody can kill you, and you're one of the best tanks in the game at the moment with Warmogs, Cinderhulk, and his ultimate healing 50 to 100% of his maximum health. I don't think I really need to point this out, but you do have a lot of health with those items. And the second side is that then all of the damage you have from your cleavers, your red smite, your E, AD, and the fact that you can't kite him, he just runs through you. You'll be surprised, but Mundo is actually a top tier jungler now, at least in Korea, and he's being banned way more every single day. So next up is courtesy of somebody who slides in my DM. So I have a master tier player in Korea called Kalisi. I hope I'm saying that right. He sometimes supplies me with a couple of picks here and there when he sees them in his games. This is one of those picks. So quite a few Korean Draven one tricks, even pro players like Viper from Griffin have been playing this new build on Draven, which is super weird. As you can see, this build is really strange. First off though, you can actually just run this rune set with normal items with Halo Blades. It's just heavier burst when you go in because of the quick 3 auto attack. So for full fights it's better, but the downside is that against like trade lanes, so like Lucian for example, you can't really harass because your Halo Blades will go on cooldown after 1 auto attack, and then you have to leave combat for its comeback. So it's kind of like all or nothing. I've seen it a few times when I was looking into it, like just that rune set with normal items with regular build, and it seems to work pretty well. I know it seems really odd, but it's very cheap. It has perfect mana control for lane phase, so you can spam W all the time and you won't run out of mana pretty much ever. Having more mana should mean that you can fight a little bit more, at least. Like you can just W forward, hit, and then kind of back off. The one thing I really want to point out though is that it's 1,100 gold cheaper than a Bloodthirster, which is normally your first item, right? So that's almost a BF sword. Well, pretty much. Manamune and BF sword is 75 AD and Bloodthirster is 80. So yes, you have no lifesteal and no shield and stuff, but damage wise is actually very similar, and it's very similar gold. There are a couple of ways of doing this afterwards, but most go for Essence Reaver for even more mana regen, AD, and cooldown reduction as well, and then you really can just spam your W and never run out. You still have a lot of AD, and then after that you go into your Infinity Edge for the crit and the crit damage. It looks really weird, but it actually isn't that bad, and when it transforms into Muramana, you have the extra burst on every single auto, well, on everything as well actually, but it's 6% of your current mana. It's very glass cannon. It is less healing, less safety, but it is more damage overall, especially with Halo Blades. You get 3 procs of Muramana off very quickly in a fight. It takes some adjusting to, I guess. It's pretty different, but considering some of the best Dravens in Korea are using it right now and testing it out properly, it makes sense. It's actually got some real plus sides. If you watch the rest of my other videos, which you definitely should do, of course, if you remember in the patch video, I said Galio was trash and this buff wouldn't really save him. Apparently, I was very wrong. He's actually doing really well. So to recap, in 9.17, the cooldown of his Q was reduced to early ranks, and the minimum and maximum damage of his taunt taunt was doubled. That was on top of a lot of other buffs in 9.15 as well that increased basically all of his damage everywhere, even though you can't actually taunt flash anymore, which kind of sucks. He's being played a bit more now as we get into the patch, which normally means that people test him first, and then if he's actually good, they continue to play him, which is exactly what's happening right now. One thing that I have noticed a lot is that it's being used as a counter to Akali, sometimes to Sylas as well, but Akali is the really big one since she stands absolutely no chance. Galio is way too tanky to burst. He has his taunt which can cover the whole shroud and force her to break it. He has good AoE poke damage to bully her early and even get her in the shroud, and then he just roams after pushing. Just as a side, by the way, he's still really not that good as a support, but with some AP, he can actually finally kill stuff. Like, his damage is really good and he can abuse aftershock still. Early game can kind of be the worst phase for him really, where he loses the most often, but after that point, at 2+ items, he will actually hurt way more, like do a lot of damage. This time around, it isn't just your Q though. Your passive now scales with cooldown reduction, and you get 30% from our first 2 items, so you smash a lot more often. Obviously, you have your roaming with your ultimate. From mid, you can slightly walk either side and just ult somebody in another lane to help or kind of like counter gank or join a fight. Once you're in there, you can't flash taunt as we said, but you can spam your Qs out. You auto attack a bunch, and you basically just be a mage really. It's kind of like when they overbuffed the AP Galio, and he would just throw out a Q, insta clear the wave, and deal some really good damage. It isn't as bad as that, but we're kind of moving back towards it. It's not just Sylas and Akali, by the way. Against anything that isn't really like the best in the lane phase, like Swain or Azir or even Vigar, all scaling and stuff, right? He can do pretty well and match up like evenly. Let's just move to one of the best picks for top lane right now. If we don't count Aatrox, at least Pantheon is one of the best top laners at the moment, but Korea are so aggressive, so it definitely makes a lot of sense. It is the first time we've really seen him since the update. He wasn't played much, but now he's kind of settled more, and even people actually use him as a mid laner, not just a top laner. I won't spend too long on this one because Korea are back to lethality, kind of like before the update as well, but the main difference between the old and the new Pantheon are the runes really. We're not really using Electrocute at all. Conqueror works so well with his kit now that abilities can stack it, and he heals and is way more durable. One of the things I've noticed is that Korea actually use him to dive a ton because of the rework to E, so they'll push, they'll call the jungler, and they'll dogpile on, and he blocks a lot of damage. Pressy attack isn't really used as much, but it is a really good keystone actually, since you can stack it so easily with his new kit, and your damage isn't completely front loaded like it was before, so you still have follow-up afterwards. The short version is that he is just the best early game champion in the game at the moment. You bully lane, you dive, you then roam with your ultimate, and you start to snowball other lanes pretty much like before, but just better. If you're going to play against Pantheon, by the way, Kled is really good against him. Poppy and Jax also do pretty well, but he smashes a lot of other bruisers like Aatrox or Renekton, which are everywhere. There is another way of doing this as well, which is easier to play, less risky, where you end your build going more tanky and bruiser, kind of like Asterix, a Deadmans, and stuff like that. So if your team needs an off tank, he's actually pretty good at it. For these videos, I always use stat sites, but I always look at high reload as well and see what they're playing. This is one that I noticed there, and then I also noticed it at lower ranks. Ekko jungle is definitely back again. Mid isn't played a ton anymore, but Ekko gets to skip the laning phase if he jungles, and he goes straight to that jump in and burst part of the game. So his ganks are actually really good. He has his slow or his stun if he gets there, and he places the field properly. A dash, a blue smite. It's not quite elite level, but he's pretty good. Farming in the jungle as an AP champion tends to be pretty bad, but for Ekko, it's not at all. Like, your farming is good. You have your AoE damage, your stun, your shield, your 3-hit passive, and especially after runic echoes, you breeze through camps. Your ultimate after 6 is really what makes him such a good jungler in my opinion, because it makes him the perfect champion to dive with. Even better than Elise, really. You set it up, you jump under tower from behind, you stun them, you burst with your laner, and then you ultimate back out afterwards. The only thing with the build is that you really need to not get Zhonya's too early as jungle Ekko. You won't have enough damage. You really need that Lich Bane, which is normally 3rd since you need a jungle item. So I guess like for mid lane, you can kind of get your Zhonya's 3rd, but in this build, you have to get it 4th really. Runes are pretty standard. More junglers actually go Dark Harvest, so that could be something to try if you want to burst a bit harder, but normally it's just Electrocute and you just run around and kill everything. I know in the past few career videos, we have talked about Swain a few times, but the one we actually didn't mention, the one role we didn't look at is support, and this is now his most popular role in career. It's getting more popular at higher ranks, which means it's going to filter down eventually as well, but he does really well against weaker lanes, and there are 2 ways to do this. The first is to max Q, and you poke with it as often as you can, pretty much like lane Swain, I guess. You can even help push the wave and control with that instead. The other way is to max your W first. It does have a higher win rate, but it's probably a bit harder to pull off. It does a crazy 300 damage damage when maxed out, and it slows by 65%, but it is on a longer cooldown and it's harder to hit. The idea behind this is to be like as annoying as possible as Swain support. You're going to be anyway, right? But you're stacking your health, which then makes you pretty annoying as an off-tank damage thing in fights. That's the new part to Swain since the update, and that is actually on his soul fragment, so hitting W or pulling passive. It has nothing to do with his CS at all, so you can stack this just as well as a support. Swain bot lane isn't really that new. We've had it as AD before and stuff, and the reason, one of the reasons at least it works, is because his claw is about the same range as an AD carry's auto attack range. So if they want to CS, you can claw them your E and then pull them backwards afterwards to you through proc electrocute. It's really hard to play against, and that chunks an AD massively, so he does a lot of damage, and for a mage, he's not even that easy to kill actually. It is a kill lane, that's the idea of it though, and then afterwards you can absorb damage, try to engage with your W slow, or just follow up crowd control from teammates, but you are building like Rod of Ages and normal AP items to be a threat mid-game. One that isn't a new build or anything, so before you flame me, Kassadin has seen a really big uptake since the new patch and is getting banned more now as well, but the buff actually came in 9.16, not 9.17. It took a patch to kind of like filter back into the meta really, but it was 30 more damage on his W, which especially for melee matchups means he can trade in lane and not get bullied as much, or if you suck at cannons, you can take a cannon easier. This whole pick is basically just like, if you don't get so bent over in lane that you can't stand up again, you're probably gonna win. Part of that as well is that we go double scaling, which most champions just can't really get away with. It's too slow, but Rod of Ages into Archangels, and both of those need time to actually be strong. They're not very good when you buy them, and they're really good like 10 minutes later. If you're fed after that as well, you can skip your Zhonya's and go into Lichbane, or even go Medjai's actually, I guess, as well, but that will mean you just roll over anyone because you have way too much damage. It is really just like a ticking time bomb. It's a new age Nasus, right? Eventually you will have way too much damage and mobility to deal with, and there is nothing the enemy team can do. If you can get fed in lane phase, obviously you skip that part if you manage to outplay, or if you get like a jungle gank or something, and at lower ranks as well, games go longer, so in general it's normally a really good pick. This is a really 1v9 champion. It's about as 1v9 as you can get. All you have to do is farm, get levels and items to win the game, and I'd highly recommend it right now, at least at lower ranks especially. That's going to wrap up the video from me today, so thank you for watching until the very end. Those are going to be some new picks from Korea in 9.17. Let me know if you try any of these, but thank you for sticking around until the very end of the video, and for now, I will leave you with the robots.